Are we on? Are we live?
We are. Good evening, gentlemen. Nice cough.
What a way to start the pod. Yeah, very good. What have you lot been up to? We're all in the same room again. That's quite nice, isn't it?
It is. Again? Been driving again?
Yeah, it was. You were allowed out on Sunday,
Yeah.
Andy.
Yeah.
I
was.
How come you were allowed out on Sunday?
Oh, it was a good boy on Saturday.
He's a bit under the thumb, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, of course. Who isn't?
Actually, you won a T-shirt off me. I've just realised I forgot to bring it round and give it to you.
I was looking forward to the skin tight.
Yeah.
Because it's medium, isn't it?
It is a medium, yeah. You have to breathe in when you're wearing it.
Oh, bloody will, I tell you.
It might work, I don't know. Did a giveaway on my Instagram, Porsche quiz, and the last question you had to write in the comment, the first person to get the correct answer won the T-shirt. Any case, up pops 993 Andy with boom. Yeah, the right answer, and he was straight in.
I felt a bit guilty, to be honest.
Nah, it was good.
Yeah.
Well, I thought maybe it looks a fix because it's my Road to Redline buddy.
But it couldn't be fixed, could it?
No, it literally couldn't.
What was the
be
question?
fixed.
The question was so simple anyway.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
What was the question?
Straight in. So one of the categories was Porsche shades, Porsche colours, and they were all different types of
Red.
red.
What was the primary colour?
Yeah, so it was like a ruby stone, Zanzibar, guards, obviously, carmine.
Ruby Stone's red.
Ruby stone red. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the full title
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. So there we go. But then, it was what primary colour were all of them?
Winner.
Andy popped up, thought, what a result, no postage.
But then you've forgotten it.
Yeah, I forgot to bring the bloody thing round anyway. So,
How many weeks of quiz did you do in the end?
I think it was 6. Stopped doing it weekly now. I'm going to do it monthly, last Sunday of the month. But yeah, just a bit of fun while we're in lockdown. But
Good effort, that.
it was great fun. And as we're all testifying by kind of sitting around a table now, Boris is letting us out and about a bit more, isn't he? So
Yeah.
You want your Sunday nights back?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It takes a little bit of time to put it together, I suppose. But no, all good.
Good.
All good, yeah. And you had your Cayman out Sunday as well. And you did a track day yesterday,
Did track day
you not?
yesterday, yeah. So, dusted it off and thought better give it a run before we give it a full run. And, it's good. Yeah, nice to have a little Sunday morning drive with it. Kept up with the packs. That was all right.
What was the track day like? So it's Thruxton, wasn't it?
Yeah, cracking, actually. We really lucked out. Sort of, left here, it just was dry all day. A bit of wind around, which kept the track dry as well. Yeah, weather blew over. Yeah, really, really, really good.
Perfect.
It just ran really, really well. So, yeah, chuffed. It was nice to be out and around people and cars and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, mixed crowd. It was it wasn't a Porsche specific.
It's a fast track, Thruxton, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's a really fast track. I think it's probably the fastest one we've had it on.
Yeah.
And it's it's fast, and when you get lots of people going fast, everything happens pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, actually. So the back straight at Thruxton at the moment, they're doing some sort of building work on the piece of land, directly next to the track. 3 feet away from the edge of the track. So they've put in a temporary chicane, which is a slow down to 20 mile an hour chicane.
Right.
So it's that was quite interesting because normally that's right in the middle of the fastest
back
bit,
straight.
So it was, it made for an interesting one because I think some people forgot about it.
Oh, shit.
Straight
Getting
on.
a bit squirrely up to it.
Yeah.
Which was quite interesting. So it was good fun though. Yeah, it was a cracking day.
Nice. You got many more lined up then with the Cayman track days? Or?
We had a whole diary full. Most of which were towards were early in the year, and obviously in lockdown they all got cancelled. So we've actually we've banked a load of credits that we need to now go and rebook. The trouble is it's a bit unfair really because they obviously did all the cancellations, told everyone they had credits, and if we're honest, we missed the boat. And when they re-released the dates again, we didn't jump on it, and loads of them are now full. So even though we did sort of early in the year got organised, it's kind of gone a bit pear-shaped. So we're going to just grab spaces where we can. I think.
Yeah. What does a track day look like now then? Post-COVID.
Well,
we're
it's
still very much in it, aren't we?
Quite interesting actually. So basically rock up, contact with nobody, see nobody, signing on. They had a separate office, one person in at a time. You had to have all your stuff done in advance. And the briefing was the funniest bit. So briefing was done on Facebook Live.
Really?
Yeah, so everyone was stood around with their phone, either in your pit or in your garage or whatever. Phone out, and the main organizer did it on Facebook Live. He's literally, you can see him stood down the pits away, chatting away, and does the whole briefing Facebook Live.
Mad.
So that was kind of a little bit odd. It's funny, there's a couple of old boys there which were like, What's Facebook?
Yeah, yeah.
Phones upside down.
Didn't know where to start, so that was all right. So but it's good. It was good though. Ooh, nice. What are you showing me there? What's that?
Oh well, I think we've all seen it, haven't we? This from Craig Mix 72. They did some amazing illustrations of our cars, so I think we should give them a shout because they're pretty epic.
Yeah,
we've had some individuals and that brilliant group one as well, and I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, and considering that none of us have ever taken a picture of our car head on.
Not head on.
It's not like he's taken an existing picture and mucked around with it. Really, absolutely got some good quality detail in there.
Yeah, definitely.
Some serious talent there, isn't there?
Yeah. So you did yours first, didn't you, Joe? That's how the story come about.
Yeah, I think did mine and sort of reached out and said I've done this, which was completely out of the blue, which is pretty impressive in itself. I think just take the time to kind of do it on a bit of a whim. Obviously seriously impressed, and then very kindly rolled it out for the rest of us, which was cool.
Yeah, he's a local boy as well down here. I think it's out Toll Puddle Way. So,
okay. Yeah,
good man. That sounds so Dorset. It's painful,
it's very Dorset, isn't it?
Yeah. Dorset. That and I always say Litchit Matravers. That is honestly that sounds like a disease, not a do you know what I mean? A town.
You should try spelling it because I work in Litchit Matravers.
Oh,
that's
do
where
you really?
Our office is. And when you have to spell it, it's like, I think I just have to get the reference material out.
Litchit Matravers. It just sounds. I bet there's got to be a good pub there that does a proper solid local ale. Surely.
Only if you are a local, though.
Yeah. You know,
load
of beardies drinking it and stuff. You know.
Yeah.
But,
absolutely.
No, that's seriously cool. It's we've put a picture up, haven't we, on our Instagram page of CJ's artwork there. Yeah. So definitely check him out. We are genuinely blown away by that, aren't we?
Yeah.
So
proper good.
Check him out. I hope CJ's in a position to be taking commissions. Should be after that.
We'll get in contact. We can pass people on or make an intro. I think if people do want to get in touch or have their car done, because I'm sure there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, give us a shout.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's going on my office wall. That don't know what you guys are doing with your pictures. So
definitally, I think
bathroom wall,
big print.
Bathroom wall, bedroom wall. Linda Lusardi's coming down at last.
You have to ask if you're allowed first, though, Andy.
It will be, won't it? Quality, please. We better get our interview on, shall we?
Who have we got today?
So is one of our own, essentially, is Kyle Fortune, automotive journalist of a considerable amount of time. I think coming up to 20 years, but we'll double check that. Written for T911 for a number of years, former Porsche owner, currently got a 205 GTI in the stable as we'll look at. But Kyle has kind of written for everybody in the industry. Yeah, I guarantee you would have read some of Kyle's work at some point. So, get him on.
Got some stories to tell, I think, hasn't he?
Cool. Let's have him on.
Welcome to Road to Redline, Kyle. We really appreciate you coming on our podcast this evening.
That's a pleasure, mate. I'm more than happy to be here. Always good to talk with some like-minded people about some cool things.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, while you were waiting for us to get over our tech crisis, what were you looking at on Auto Trader?
Mercedes-Benz classes.
Okay, so what's special about the V-Class?
I've got 3 kids. That's what's special about it. And you can get all your nonsense in it. I ran a Marco Polo camper van version for 6 months for the Telegraph, and we kind of fell in love with it. As much as I like sports cars and supercars and actually all cars, at the end of the day, I've got kids and I need the space, and I love practical stuff too. So
what's the deal with the Marco Polo things? I've seen a few of those floating around here, and I had no idea. I mean, all I know Marco Polo is the annoying game that kids play in a swimming pool. But
it's basically, I mean, you'll have heard of the VW California, which is their sort of factory sort of, camper van. It's basically the Merc version of that. So Mercedes do a Marco Polo, which is the one we had was just the Horizon. It was the Horizon one, which was the basic one. Didn't have a cooker in it and all that nonsense. It just had 5 seats, and the back seats you could fold down into a double bed, and you could pop the roof up into a double bed as well. So, when we went on holiday last year, we were sharing a big house with the rest of the family, and every night, pretty much me and the kids would sleep in that because it was just a giggle. I've slept in the driveway, and it was just, it's just a good fun thing to have, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum to Porsches and sports cars and all that sort of stuff. Good, just good family fun.
It's an admirable nod to variety, which is definitely something we'll come on to a little bit later on, Carl, with you and your career. You're an automotive freelancer of how many years now?
Oh God, it's quite frightening when I think about it. 20 years now.
Wow.
Which is terrifying. I keep thinking somebody's going to find me out at some point and tell me to go and get a proper job.
No, I mean, you know my thoughts on you, Kyle, without blowing too much smoke in your direction so early on in the pod, but absolute valued member of T911 in what you do for us in test driving all the cars first, essentially, isn't it, in international first drives. Tell us your story in terms of like where did you start? It was 20 years ago. How did you get into this madhouse industry of automotive journalism?
I'll give you the truncated version. It was relatively straightforward. I mean, I did the sort of uni thing. I did 6 years at uni because I never could make my mind up. So I did 2 years in Edinburgh and then 4 years at Glasgow.
Doing what?
I did a geography degree of all things. Okay. So I've got an honours degree in geography, which was useful in the early days, reading map books on car launches, but not much else. But I mean, all that really taught me was that I quite enjoyed writing and had a good sort of knack of doing it. I was the annoying kid at uni who would, knock out an essay and, I'd start it at midnight and hand it in at 7 o'clock the next morning, and I'd get pretty good marks for it. So and it really was at the end of my uni years that I was still getting really good marks on my sort of submitted work and stuff, and my parents were having some friends over, and they're going, "What the hell is he going to do with himself?" And it's like, and they mentioned this fact that I could sort of write, and they were like, "Oh, has he ever thought about journalism?" And I was literally sitting in the next room reading Car Magazine, watching Top Gear. And my dad came in and said, "Why don't you do that?" And it was literally a bit of a eureka moment, and I was like, "Well, I've never thought about it." And for about the last 6 months of uni, actually, I shared a flat from first and second year, coincidentally, with a guy, Andrew Kokori, who was a racing driver, and ended up racing at Le Mans for Ferrari and setting up race teams and worked with McLaren, tested McLaren F1 car and all that sort of stuff. So I sort of had a bit of a taste of that side of the business. Met a few journalists in the pit lane, when I was out with my mate, basically, and I sort of wrote a couple of his race reports for him for the uni newspaper. Yeah. And then literally within 6 months of leaving uni, I'd gone and done a very brief sort of journalism course, a sort of intensive journalism course I paid for, and it was down in Mitcham, near Croydon, in the journalism training centre. It was 14 weeks intensive, and part of that was you had to go and do work experience. I did 2 weeks at Autocar and a week at Top Gear. And it was funny. It was back in the day when, the likes of Chris Harris was on the road test desk. I was there with Sutcliffe and some other names you'd recognise, like Colin Good and all these sort of guys that subsequently I sort of gotten on to sort of and gotten to know very well. But after doing that, I graduated from that course, and before I'd finished, I'd got a job basically around the corner at a little publication for the Driving Instructors Association of all places, and they produced 2 magazines. Once, it was once a month, but they were bi-monthly. So it was Driving Instructor, which is like a newspaper format for their members, and Driving Magazine, which was a sort of road safety publication. And they got an amazing amount of test cars and stuff like that. It was incredible. It was back in the day where manufacturers just lent test cars out everywhere. So I did a year and a half there. I walked in.
Wasn't it just micros though, and like polos?
No, it wasn't. I mean, I remember, literally walking in, and actually one of the first things I saw when I was there was a 911. He had a 996 out on loan, and I was like, bloody hell, what's he doing that? And he would get these cars out for a week and write, a page on it, and it was going out to all these road safety professionals and sort of, internationally. So, the manufacturers obviously saw some worth in it. Not sure they would have, be quite so kind now, but back in the day, I mean, this is sort of, you've got to remember, this is sort of pre-internet, pre-influencers, pre-bloggers, vloggers, all that sort of stuff. So publications, print was still, king, So even little magazines wielded quite a bit of power. If you could sort of demonstrate that you had a decent amount of readers, you could get quite a lot of cars and stuff. So, but no, I started there. I'd done at my journalism training centre course, I'd ended up doing production. So I literally sat down, the designer saw that I could lay out a page, walked out, and within about a week, I was delivering my first magazine to the printers that I'd laid out, written, done some photography, the whole lot. So, and that was just a brilliant grounding. It's like, yes, I wanted to write. I got into the business because I want to drive cars. But the other thing that's really important, and I think a lot of people sort of forget this, is I love writing as well. I actually genuinely do like sitting down and writing something. And I think, I hope that's kind of reflected in what I do write. And I sort of think you've got to sort of care about the writing as much as you do about the detail and driving the cars and the fun that you have doing that. But after that, I ended up going to an agency. I ended up setting up Microsoft's MSN Cars. I helped them with all their templates. I edited the World Car Guide for the Daily Express, did a lot of work for Auto Express on their new car buyer's guide and all that sort of stuff through this agency.
So that, I was going to say, that by then surely is, you're flexing your contacts book there, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I was a junior staff member at an agency, and then sort of built myself up to the point where I was, sort of the editor there, and he was more than happy to try and sell it to me. It was a company called Morton Research, who still exists. And then I went and joined a friend, Shane O'Donoghue, car enthusiast, and he'd been pitching to do Yahoo's work. You've got to remember these internet providers, Yahoo and MSN and all that sort of people. They were huge for a while, and they did their own automotive sites. I think Sky ended up doing one, which I wrote for through another colleague who, funnily enough, I'd met back in the day doing work experience in Autocar. And he's subsequently gone to America, so I sometimes do work for him on his American site there. So, I mean, it is about contacts. I mean, and from there, I ended up, as Lee well knows, I just decided, rather than sort of work for other people or with other people, I just sort of fancied branching out on my own and being a little bit more independent and having the flexibility to do, the family thing, and not, because one of the things I used to do a lot of and don't do quite so much, certainly nowhere near as much, as I used to be out on every launch. There was barely a week that I wouldn't be on a car launch, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm as happy to be driving a Fiesta as I am a Ferrari or whatever. All cars interest me, but it just, I've got kids, I've got a wife and family, and I've got a life, and I don't really want to spend 2-3 nights away every week doing that. So I chose to sort of go on my own way and sort of specialize in sort of more early access stuff and, premium stuff and stuff that I'm interested in, and older things, because without sounding like a broken record, like a lot of the guys in the industry, a lot of the new stuff, it's just a little bit, it's all about the technology that's involved. And I'm still a real keen driver. I like, actually driving cars. Now, I find a lot of the modern stuff really frustrating. It's all these systems you've got to switch off, and they're trying to guide you between lanes and all that sort of nonsense. It drives me nuts.
Kyle, when you're kind of, talking about you converting your drive into the written piece.
Yeah.
How hard is it to kind of dial back almost your true feeling? Because ultimately, if a company, this is, pre-COVID, if a company flies you out somewhere, drives the car, and you go, oh, fantastic car, I'd rather have my 205. There's a balance, isn't there? How do you approach that?
I mean, the answer to that is, to pretty much everything, I'd always rather have my 205 or Porsche, because they are just wonderfully interesting things to drive. But I mean, the thing is that a lot of people forget, and I think a lot of journalists and colleagues are maybe a little bit guilty of, is being the enthusiast all the time. You've got to sort of almost put yourself in the shoes of the buyer that this car's for. Yeah. Now that's fairly straightforward when it's something like a Porsche launch, because Porsche's appeal to enthusiastic drivers. The people I'm writing for are enthusiastic drivers. If I'm going in a Ford, well, actually, Ford is the wrong example because they do drive very well. But, if I'm going on a Hyundai i10 launch, I've got to think, well, who's going to buy this? It might be a first-time buyer. It's going to be, an older couple, and they'll be buying it on things like warranty and stuff like that. So you've got to put a different hat on. I mean, if I was to mention the fact that it understeers, into a roundabout if you're going a little bit too quick, which probably would do on a car launch, in fairness. I would probably drive an i30 into a roundabout to make it understeer because I'm an idiot and I like driving fast. But that is irrelevant to the person who's going to be buying it. So I wouldn't mention that. I'd be looking at, is the boot size good? Is there 3 usable seats across the back? It's about knowing your audience.
Get into the mindset of the audience, isn't it?
And I've never once, and I've always been a big advocate, and I've always said, yes, we are treated royally. We are spoilt rotten, and more so back in the day. I've always sort of said, it doesn't matter how fast the hotel is. It doesn't matter if I'm flown out on an EasyJet or a Learjet. I mean, and it is that disparate. It can be as wide as that. It just doesn't bother me at all. Yes, it's lovely to go on a nice fancy plane and stay in a hotel, but it has absolutely no impact on what I say or think about the car. You've got to, the only thing you have as a journalist is that credibility. The second you start sort of going, well, that was a nice launch, and I like those people. Even if because I genuinely do count some of the people in the industry as friends, some of the PRs, on the other side of the fence. But they're also adversaries, because, they're trying to get me to write about their car and say nice things. And if I don't think it's a good car, as long as I can justify it, then I'm entirely justified to say that, So, and I have had cars recently where, I did the McLaren GT launch, and I did it for an American publication, and it was on a website and it didn't have my name on it. And the American PRs got a bit sort of up in arms about it, and they sort of came back and were like, well, who wrote this? And it was like, well, and they said it was me. And I had the UK PRs phone me up and ask me about it. And I just sort of said, well, this is what I think, and I don't, you're calling it a GT car. It's not a GT car. It's a supercar that happens to have a bigger boot. And that is not a GT car, and against its competition, it is nowhere near as good as them. It's a great sports car. It's a great supercar, but it's not a GT car. And they got a little bit upset about that. But you've got to sort of stand by your guns. And, if you believe that and you can justify what you're saying, then, that's how it is, and I don't mind upsetting people if that's what it takes. And, it's not a case of I don't want to upset anybody, but I have a duty to say what I think and to give that to the people who are reading it, right?
Well, that's the thing, Carl, it's kind of what I've been brought up to learn and appreciate is the role of a journalist is, you speak your mind based on the facts that you've found and the facts you're presented with. And if you don't do that, then your PR. That is the difference between being a journalist and being a PR,
Absolutely, totally. I mean, you're given, as many of the facts as they are prepared to give you, and then you've got to go and find the rest of them, and then, then you go and make an informed opinion. And over 20 years of doing this, you've got a reasonable bank, or I've got a reasonable bank of knowledge that I can sort of dip into and go, well, actually, is this any good, or is this better than that, or why is this better? Or, and sometimes, if it's like a family car, like I was saying, or like a hatchback, it's probably down to the PCP payment or how good the infotainment is, because like I say, people don't give a rat's ass about really how it drives. Although,
how many cubby holes it's got for kids.
Yeah, I mean,
toys.
It is. And then I'm actually doing a job at the minute, for a client, which is sort of perfect sort of COVID sort of lockdown job where I'm doing some really big sort of write-ups for some clients, and it's just to fill some website with copy and it's really detailed stuff, and you're sort of going, and I'm writing about some cars that you're sort of thinking, God, this is really done. And then you go, well, actually, it's got a great warranty. It's going to cost you this, and it's really economical. Can't get excited about it, but the people that are buying it aren't going to be getting excited about driving it. They're going to be getting excited about the fact that it's their new car and it costs them X,
Well, the latest, I think it's Ibiza. It's either the Ibiza or Leon, can't remember. The entire television advert is all to do with Apple CarPlay. There is nothing about the car itself or, what it looks like from the outside, but apart from like a flash at the end. It's all about the infotainment system.
But they'll sell a lot of cars based on that Apple CarPlay.
Yeah.
Of course they will.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit like younger people now, isn't it? They're saying, they're not that interested in driving. So actually, probably the top thing on their list of purchases probably is Apple CarPlay rather than what engines it got or anything else. Which is mad, isn't it?
Yeah. And I find that really sad. But I mean, that's the reality we live in, which is why increasingly I just sort of find driving the older stuff much more interesting. And I think that the sort of guys like you and I will be catered for by older stuff. And not to say that new cars aren't interesting, exciting, but I sort of find the performance you can't really use, and when you do, it's the levels of grip and everything are so high that to do so, on the roads, it's not. I wouldn't say it's dangerous because I just think it's irresponsible.
Yeah, a bit antisocial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kyle, though, you do absolutely have the best job in the world, though. Like, there's not many people I think I wouldn't mind swapping with them for a period of time. You're definitely one of them. Like it's an incredible thing. I think essentially flying the world and driving these cars, but with that surely comes a lot of pressure because obviously speaking to you when we're kind of planning features for the magazine. You are here, there, and everywhere. Is it quite hard? You alluded to it earlier on, but is it quite hard, kind of fitting that in with a normal family life?
It can be, and it could be if you let it be. One of the things, I mean, I'm enthusiastic about what I do. I totally appreciate that I am very, very lucky to do something that I love. Okay, I mean, I rarely get up and think, oh my God. I don't want to go to work. In fact, I don't. And that's even at the minute when I've got the kids all day and I'm actually having to get up at 4 a.m. every morning and have done for the last 6 weeks to try and squeeze a working day before my wife starts her work.
That's difficult, isn't it?
It is difficult, but that's the reality at the minute and that's very unusual. But I did make a conscious decision, got married, to try and do less launches. And being freelance, or even when I was with agencies, I was always sort of freelance, and I was always senior enough that I could pick and choose to a certain extent. And I always worked before my children. I've got 3 children, 2 of which are school age, and one who isn't. He's only 1. And I made a conscious decision as well that you can't really buy the time back, can you? So for all of them, I've worked a 4-day week.
Yeah.
So I've had a day with the kids, which just helps out the house and stuff. But I also wanted to do it because I've got the best job in the world, but being a dad's the best job in the world, and we can all do that. And I can do it, more because I can be flexible and do that. So yes, I am very lucky, and it is difficult. You sometimes you sort of feel like you're sort of like a one-legged contestant in an arse kicking contest, But
just as a bit of fun. I mean, you touched on Learjets and things. What was the most memorable or most extravagant, sort of red carpet they've laid out in terms of cars or manufacturers?
We have genuinely been on, things like Lear's. I mean, we had Alan Sugar's private plane take us up to the Arctic Circle once to do an Audi S1 launch. It was, and we were taken out by Stig Blomqvist in an old Audi Quattro S1 on the snow. And God, I could spend hours telling you stories like that. And it's that sort of stuff that I still pinch myself, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Yes, there's helicopters and plane. Like for example, actually that McLaren GT launch, we were flown into Nice as per what used to be very usual, but before all this. Yeah. And then we were sort of put straight on a helicopter and flown over on Tees, went to this beautiful private residence and whatnot, lovely dinner, all that sort of nonsense. But I was sort of joking with the guys. Well, maybe they sort of brought us here by helicopter so they could send out the notification saying you can't bring too much luggage. And given this, the GT I'm talking about, that they were talking about saying it had a big boot, so it just meant that you could get your luggage in it. So I sort of thought that was maybe a clever bit of PR. It was a bit of a PR ruse to get us to bring less luggage than usual. But certainly, I some of the things, I was trying to think back to certainly Porsche ones. I've done lots. I've got a very good relationship with the company, and I've done lots of launches with them, and on many occasions sat beside some incredible drivers in some amazing cars and amazing places. It's a very privileged position to be in, and it's lovely to write about it and try and convey that to the people who read it.
Yeah. Going back a few weeks before everything that's happened. What was your sort of average week, say, back in December and January? What's your normal sort of thing?
January was slow. January, February are normally quite slow for me. I tend to slow down over Christmas, and it takes a little bit of time for the industry to pick up post Christmas.
Yeah.
I sort of tend to find that the year, I always sort of start my working year really in sort of round about Geneva.
Right. So let's go back a bit further then.
Well, sort of a typical week, there's no such thing really. It used to be, sort of pre-going sort of solo, it used to be I'd be on a car launch somewhere every week. I'd literally be getting on a plane somewhere. And that, that would be, whether it be Farnborough, Tag Aviation on a private terminal, or whether it be EasyJet, Luton, or more often than not, it's just a BA out of Heathrow. So it'd be an early start, drive down to the airport, jump on a plane, meet some colleagues or whatever at the airport, fly to wherever you're going, jump in a car, drive around, do some photography if necessary, do video if necessary, and then it's a sort of evening meal, sort of, and that's I think I did listen to the one where Lee mentioned he was on. It was the 911 Cabriolet, 992 cab, where we were together, and that's something that I've sort of really cultivated in the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, I wasn't so bothered when I was sort of agency side because I wasn't really that desperate to find all the stories, because I've got to look on it as every time you meet people and launches is an opportunity to get more work. And if that's sitting with the executives or the engineers and a lot of it's out of personal interest as well, but to spend time with them, it gives your stories greater depth. You can get new stories out of it. Certainly, T911's benefited on a few occasions where I've come back and said, oh, well, I was speaking to so-and-so about this, and, this is coming in. Or even if it just qualifies stuff that, you think's coming, and building relationships and just making sure that you get in cars and stuff.
Work the room, baby, as they say.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. I mean, it's like any business, isn't it? You've got to work the room, and you've got to sort of meet contacts and make the best of them. So it's like anything like that. But then the next day, you get up, you don't have a few drinks at the bar, but gone are the days of staying up till sort of 2-3 in the morning. I mean, the first international launch I went on was Peugeot 206 GTI, which might have something to do with the fact that now I own a 205 GTI. That's a different story. But I remember going on that launch and seeing a group of journalists staying up till 4 or 5 in the morning, or hearing about it, because I went to bed sort of about midnight. But
being the good boy.
These guys going and getting absolutely hammered, and then getting in the car the next day, and I was just like, what are you doing? It's madness. And that was quite prevalent in the industry. Yeah. So I think the internet changed things because everybody had to suddenly get a bit more professional, because all of a sudden we're filing words that were getting published straight away. I've been
you had to be sober and didn't have the time.
I've been on car launches where I've had an hour to turn around words after getting out of the car so they can get it online, or even if they can get it to a magazine. And Lee's put me on the spot a few times and sort of said, can you get me 2,000 words over within 12 hours of sitting in it? And that just means that, that evening, even in those situations, I'll still go to the dinner because they're worthwhile to speak to the guys. But it's a glass of fizzy water rather than a glass of fizzy beer.
I have to say, Kyle, and again, I hope it's not making your head too big on the other side of the phone there, but as you pointed out, the 992 Cabriolet launch was my first international launch.
Yeah.
And it was the first time we were on a launch together, because usually you would cover it for T911.
Yeah.
And I was so blown away by your professionalism and actually your work rate more than anything, just as somebody who's not been on that side of the industry before, and to kind of see how you kind of carried yourself, how the fact that some big names at Porsche had so much respect for you, clearly, and as you say, while a couple of people in the evening might be looking longingly at the bottle of plonk, you're kind of chatting cars, and yes, there's an interest personally in it, but you're ultimately doing your job. And then, as you say, I am guilty of chucking a few deadlines at you that were kind of the other side of your plane journey and stuff. And it was a real eye opener, mate. And as far as I'm concerned, kudos to you.
Thanks, mate. No, I mean, it's funny because I think anybody who works in media or creative at all, I mean, whether it's designers, writers, anybody, I think there's that. I like the pressure of a deadline, and I mentioned it earlier on when I was saying, when I was at uni, I like to leave my essays to the last minute because it focuses your mind. So
it does. That's the focus, isn't it? It's always the focus.
Absolutely, totally. I mean, if you've got 12 hours to do something, it'll take 12 hours.
Yeah.
If I've got 3, I'll take 3, or typically I'll try and take 2 hours and 59 minutes. That's it. You get it done before. And it's like, and a deadline's a deadline as far as I'm concerned. And as a freelancer, you've got to be really strict with yourself. If Lee phones me up and says he wants 2,000 words in it, I'll give him 2,000, or maybe 10% over. So he's got a little bit if he wants to play with it and cut it out, or if he wants to, to use it. But there's no point in me writing 3,000 words for him and then having him spending, hours chopping it down or whatever, because I'm generating work for him. And the whole point of getting freelancers is to get them to do the work for you. So
I think you should shut up, because you're just giving him lots of ideas of how he can get stuff quicker, more.
Can eke a word rate out of him here.
I just want to. Can we rewind a second? You touched on the Peugeot 205 GTI. I'm guessing that's one of the cars you've got tucked away yourself.
It is, yeah.
So from somebody who has driven most things, all ends of the spectrum. I mean, what gets you excited? What's tucked away at home other than the 205, or what do you go
nothing at the
looking
minute.
for?
It's literally a 205 at the moment. I did have a 993, which I'm sure you probably read about in the back of Total 911. I had that until about a year ago, and I sold it through the guys at Sports Purpose. They did a lovely job getting rid of it for me. And it's now with a guy called Jonathan, who I follow on Instagram, so I do sort of see what he's up to with it. It's nice to see that it's been in somewhere else. But and I'm just trying to think, the 205 has been a constant. I've had that for about 19 years now. So it's survived 2 Porsches, funnily enough, because I had a 924 Carrera GT before that.
Yeah.
So that's a rare. Yeah, I don't know if you know, it's the homologation 924 that they made 75 in right-hand drive, and I had one of them. Lovely car. One of the big regrets was selling that, because now worth a significant amount more than I sold it for. But
have you found it again, Kyle? Has it resurfaced? Like, have you seen it years later? So
funnily enough, the wonders of social media. I was speaking to the guy who owns it now in Australia via Instagram only about a month or 2 ago. And I plan to go out there and actually, it's that lovely thing about this sort of community that we were, sort of the uniting thing about cars and or a shared enthusiasm for cars and driving. Is this guy's got quite a nice collection of stuff, and he's a transaxle Porsche fan, but he's got a few 911s as well. But I just sort of said, most guys in my business, if they're looking for stories, go to America, and justifiably, I've done it myself. And I did the Gunther Works thing for Lee a few years ago, but I sort of thought I could quite fancy doing an Australia trip, and that was on my to-do the plan this year.
Yeah.
And the guy, he said, come over, drive it again. Let's do a story on that, and you can borrow some of my other cars. So I'll be tapping him up to do that. And I just think that's the incredible thing about these. And one of the things which I think, yes, a lot of the stuff that I drive is manufacturer supplied, but it's the generosity and the enthusiasm of the people who own cars that I think is fascinating. I love that, and they're just more than happy to let you borrow cars, as Lee can testify. And they'll just give you the keys and say, go and drive it, go and drive the wheels off it, do what you like with it. And I'm always very cautious to do that, because, their idea of driving the wheels off it and mine might be wildly different. Yeah. And, so I tend to be very cautious when I'm driving people's cars, and you've got to sort of, respect the fact that they're theirs. And, if you've done nothing more than add a few miles on the odometer and use a little bit of fuel when you hand it back, that's the best situation,
Yeah.
Here's a question for you then, Carl. So 924 CGT versus 993. You can only have one back. Andy here's a 993 owner, by the way. So.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware of him. I think his car looks beautiful as well.
Thank you.
He's done a nice job on that.
But 924.
Yeah. It's coming in that. I can feel it.
Do you know what? I'd probably go 924, just because it's so different. It's like
it's pretty special, isn't it?
It's a very special car. They made 406 in total. 406, and it raced at Le Mans, for God's sake. It's a proper homologation car. It's the RS of the transaxle cars.
Yeah.
You know, it's a
I don't
very
feel too
special car.
winded.
And it just no, it's just it was a cool thing. I'd have that again. You know, dog-leg box, 210 horsepower, light, you know, fast, fun, actually quite practical as well. I took it to Le Mans. I drove it up to Scotland in the snow. I did. I think it was a 23,000 mile car when I bought it. I put 7,000 miles on it in a couple of years. Lent it to a few car magazines and stuff like that as well. Because, you know, I borrow cars off people, so I'm more than happy to let people borrow mine when I've got them. So
very good, very good.
Yeah.
So it was used, and then I just sort of got to the point, as you do in life, where, you know, I needed to, you know, I was getting married. Well, I hadn't got married then, but we were buying a house. And you know, it was money that I didn't have because it was sat in the garage. So it got sold, sadly, for, you know, nothing like what they're worth now. But that's, like I say, another story. But
how long ago was that, Carl?
Sorry?
How long ago was that?
10, let me think, 10 or 11 years ago. Oh, so yeah. I don't mind saying what it was. I bought it. It was a strange one. I bought it actually from Gamoon Cars, and that's a grubby word at the minute. Years and years ago, through a mutual friend of that business at the time, who was the drummer from Travis, was a guy called Neil Primrose, who likewise he'd lent me a 996 GT3 RS years ago for GT purely Porsche. Sorry to say that way. Feature that I did for Stuart Gallagher at the time, and he sort of phoned me up because he knew I'd always liked 924s, and he sort of said, "Come and see this one." And I drove it, and you know, I had no intention of buying it. I ended up buying it, and I bought it for, I think it's about 13,000-14,000 pounds. Sold it 3-4 years later for about the same I paid for it, if not a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think at the peak that was a £100,000 car, if not more. So,
bloody hell.
You know.
Oh shit!
Yeah, damn.
Yeah. No, it's good. You know, you're indulging in your passion, aren't you? At the end of the day.
And the 993 went the same way. You know, it's like we're mid-rest, you know, mid massive renovation at the house. I'm looking out of my office here, and I've got scaffolding poles all around. I've got a digger out there, and you know, there's building materials everywhere, and all that is being paid for currently by the sale of the 993.
It's scary how little a 993 goes towards that, though, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I think it's probably paid for the garage that it won't fill.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, but you know, I'll buy something else again. I as Lee well knows, I'm a big 996 advocate. I think a C2 Gen 1 or Gen 2, I'm not fussed, narrow body I'd be more than happy with something like that.
Excellent choice.
Yeah, or even, and here's the dirty words, apart from one of you, I'd even go for a Cayman, but I'm not allowed to say that.
You can say that. That's perfectly fine.
No, they're fantastic cars. I know they have their detractors, but I absolutely love them. They're brilliant things.
Yeah, Joe, you're obviously a massive fan of them, aren't you?
Wow. Keep trying to fly the flag for them. Lee's trying to burn it.
They're good cars. They're honestly, they're excellent marketing cars.
Excellent marketing
we
cars.
Joke, we joke about the car. They are a phenomenal car, aren't they? Like, without a doubt. And to be fair, as your car testifies, Joe, that you know you can have a properly sorted 987 Cayman on a budget. Yeah. I mean, how amazing is that to kind of step into the realm of Porsche for less than 20K?
I think they're extraordinary things. I mean, they really are. I mean, I think it's one of the things I love about the company. I mean, I'm very unapologetic about being a bit of a Porsche fanboy because you know, they make good things. And if they didn't, like I said earlier on, I'd be the first person to call them out and say, no, this is shit. You know, it's not good enough. But this, you know, everything they do, you can sort of feel that engineering sort of, and this just the desire to be bloody brilliant at stuff. And I always sort of say, I think, you know, there's a sort of stubbornness about the company. You know, any companies that's persisted with such a ridiculous concept as a rear engine, and made it work, you know, sort of almost defied and engineered its way around physics to make it work, is got some real core strength to it. You know, it's a fascinating business, and the amount of time I've spent with the guys who engineer these cars, you know, as a result of the quite close relationship I have with them, it's really sort of underlined how passionate they all are about it. You know, it really is, you know, and then the 911 remains that icon within the business. You know, even when I was driving Taycan last year, you know, the engineers are all like, you know, this is as sporty as you get against the 911, and you know, the 911 was still their benchmark. It's still the car that they covet. It's still the car they love, and it's, you know, you speak to people like Vallister and you know, even the guys at board level, and they're all like, you know, the 911 will remain, you know, a driver's car. It will remain a petrol car as long as we can are legally allowed to make it. You know, it's that, you know, it's the sort of beating heart of the company. It really is quite an impressive thing, and they really are passionate about it. These guys, you know, they all own Porsches. You know, they live and breathe it. It's quite fascinating, more so than any of the other companies. You know, you meet the engineers, and you know, and in fact, like, funnily enough, actually, I was reading about Mezger the other day. Obviously, sadly died recently, and you know, that guy had been with the company from day one. You know, and he just wouldn't leave. You know, and I think there's that throughout. You know, August Stachliner when he left. You know, Mr. 911. You know, when I was chatting to him, I did a sort of almost like an exit interview with him and Frank Ballister, and again, it's just this sort of, you know, well, you sort of talk to him and sort of say, do you ever sort of get to the point where you think, no, that's enough, and it's like, no, it's never good enough. It's never good enough. It can always be better, and I think that's something that's peculiar to engineers, but it's almost like the guys that, you know, at Porsche have some sort of super strain of the DNA that makes them sort of like that. They are just obsessive, but not to the point that it's clinical. There's still heart and emotion there. You know, it's a really difficult thing to describe, but it's a cool company, and you can feel that in the cars, even Caymans.
See, you're pretty close to Porsche now, aren't you? How have you nurtured that over the years?
I mean, as a freelancer, you've got to sort of look at what opportunities you got with people, and you know, there's. I mean, I you know, the fact I owned a 924 Carrera GT well before I was writing about Porsches, you know, sort of underlines it. In fact, the reason I ended up buying that car, that specific car, I always wanted a 924 Carrera GT, was just as a school kid, I read Volkswagen magazines, I read hot rod and custom car magazines, I read four magazines, I read Car, Top Gear when it came out. I was a voracious reader of car magazines, to the point that when 911 Porsche World came out, again, sorry Lee, I remember seeing it on the shelves, and I bought the first issue. And in the first issue of that magazine, there is an article about Derek Bell's 924 Carrera GTS, and he described it as the best handling car he'd ever driven, and many other people had said it's one of the best handling cars that they'd ever driven.
He still has it, does he not?
And he still has it, yes. He still has it.
Was it rebuilt at Bournemouth?
Sorry?
It was restored under Porsche Bournemouth's classic program, yeah.
So he had that car, you know, and he still, like I say, he was gifted it by Porsche when he was a factory driver, and he didn't want it. He was like, well, I'm having this for it, and subsequently fell in love with it. And I think it's the one car he's kept forever. And I remember just reading it, thinking, that's a cool story. What a cool car. I mean, it'd never been on my radar until I'd read that article. And that just kind of shows the power of, you know, of an article that it can have on a young, influential mind. And I always sort of thought that I'd love one of them. And I ended up sort of always going, God, I loved 911s as a kid as well, but I used to draw them. And it was a toy I took into school when I was a kid. It was a green 911, you know, that was the thing. But the 924 Carrera GT was always that car, and I always promised myself a Porsche by the time I was 30, and this car came up and I was 30 and a half, and it was, I'm having it. So I bought it. So yeah, it's, it's really difficult in this business that not to sort of love certain cars and fall in love with certain cars. And the brand's always been sort of close to me, and as a freelancer, you know, the opportunity to write about them. I mean, they've got such a brilliant breadth of models, albeit you know, very much in a very sort of sporting niche. But there's such history. The people associated with it are brilliant. So there's real feature opportunity there. And I'm not to say that there isn't with other brands and manufacturers, but you know, actually, you know, I can count Lee as partly instrumental in this. I remember he phoned me up when I was on the way to, I think it was 997 GTS launch. He phoned me up and he just sort of said, "Oh, you used to write for the previous editor once in a while. You know, I'd like you to come and do some more stuff." I mean, I was like, more than happy to, and because of that, I've done a lot more Porsche stuff, and as a result of that, and the access I've subsequently gained and nurtured, and the fact that I can write it for multiple outlets, you know, I'm not a Top Gear staff writer, I'm not an Autocar staff writer, and because I've never been associated with those magazines by virtue of being a staff member, I've always been freelance, I've always been independent. I can write for lots of different publications, and on occasion do write for me, you know. So on the occasions where I'm doing, sort of prototype stuff. So, when I did the 991 GT2 RS, I did a prototype drive with Andreas Preuninger, who's again one of these guys who's sort of almost counted as a friend these days. He's the first person I gravitate to in a room when we're there, and he's great company and proper car guy. But we did that prototype drive. I think it was I can't remember. I think 3 other people did it. I think it was a couple of Germans did it and myself. And that sort of story I put in, I think, about 15 or 18 different outlets globally.
Wow.
And, for a car company looking for exposure, that's a pretty cheap date, And
that's quite well nurtured, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I present that facility to people, and I'm more than aware that, there are other people that can do that, and there are other publications that might bang their fists and stamp their feet about access because they are whatever publication. But sometimes the brass tacks of it is that, there's a very limited opportunity to have people in a car, whether it's a prototype or a new car. And the best return of investment is to get somebody like myself. And I'm not just saying myself, there are other people that do it and do it very well as well.
Yeah.
And get the best return out of it. They want exposure, and I can facilitate that. And so
just out of interest, if you have a story go out to 18 publications, for example, is that 18 rewrites, or will that be much the same?
Always fastest.
Yeah, I hope so, Carl.
Do you know what? Hand on heart. Apart from, so I do syndicate. So there are syndication agencies that will take a base bit of copy and sell it to different publications. Now they will do so in different languages, and it will get translated. So it is the same words, but it'll be in different languages in different markets. So that's fine. But the majority of them will be direct contact that I have with direct clients. And yes, they all will get a unique right. I
guess you're doing that thing again where you're putting yourself into the reader's head. So that gives you the different stories.
Totally. And, a newspaper, 600-word article for a newspaper is going to be completely different to a 2,500-word article that I'm going to do for Lee in Total 911.
Yeah.
Totally different audiences. The newspaper piece will be more about the business case. Or if I'm doing it for a lifestyle, I don't tend to do lifestyle stuff, but if I was doing it, it's more the sort of, it's the sort of, the sort of lifestyle aspect of it, which really it doesn't put my boat, but I can do it if it's required of me. Or if it's a Top Gear piece, then it's going to be a much more sort of pithy, normally online, so it's normally a sort of almost like a question and answer format. And I can't really bring myself to sell something more than once. It's not right, is it? You don't get a painter around to paint the wall, and he sort of brings around the paint he's got from the last job and say, well, that's what I've got. There you go. And frankly, I working for agencies in the past, there was a bit of pressure to, actually just use that and change that a little bit. And it's called, people will say it's called topping and tailing. So you put a new introduction paragraph on it and a new sort of, verdict almost, you'll be saying the same thing, but slightly differently.
Yeah.
But I have tried that, but it's counterproductive because if a piece is written properly, it should flow properly. There should be a narrative that goes right the way through it. And it should be written to a form that suits the publication. And, you can't really chop stuff out. You can't take a paragraph from one and then add it to another. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No.
There's probably more work in trying to make it work than just sitting down and writing it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's it seems to work for everybody, the setup you've got, Carl, because like you say, you're a cheap date for Porsche, if you like, in terms of like your reach to outlets. From your point of view, it's a payday as well. But also, I mean, it's pretty cool that your kind of first name terms with Andreas Preuninger, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that. I mean that sort of access for me is just wonderful. And it's not just Andreas. There's lots of guys, and not just in Porsche. It goes across some of the other brands as well, where you'll be walking about and you're sort of, you'll be at a motor show and they'll shout you across and have a chat, and it's not. And it's not a them and us type relationship. It's just, it's just like seeing old mates again. And I think that's magnificent, And if you told me sort of 15, 20 years ago that I'd be, on first names terms with all these people that engineer some of the most exciting cars in the world, then I would have just laughed at you. You know what I mean? Yeah. And in fact, when I said to my mates, and funnily enough, they mentioned it the other day, when I said to my mates 20 years ago that after messing around for 6 years at uni, they all had their graduate jobs, they were all doing very well, in their respective careers. They're going, for God's sake, Kyle, when are you going to do something? I was like, I'm going to go and write about cars. And they're like, don't be ridiculous. and they still turn around and say, well, you bugger, you did prove us wrong. I guess it's a bit of stubbornness in that respect.
Well, just touching on Porsche specifically, what's the sort of the real standout memories that kind of stick with you? I mean, maybe something sort of Walter Roll related, I'm guessing.
There are literally, where do I start? There's lots, and Walter obviously factors in many of them. I'm just trying to think some of the key drives with Walter. I've been in Walter, and sat alongside Walter in a GT2 RS around the Nürburgring. Wow. On a Porsche Excellence Day, or Perfection Training Day. I was there to drive the then new 991. Carrera 2, following a guy called Christian Menzel, and I went out and did I think the car's capable of a 740, and I've only ever done. In fact, I've never driven the Nürburgring since, and I hadn't driven it up until then. So I think it was my 8th lap. We went out and I did. I think it was an 8-minute 20 or thereabouts. And then at the end of the day, we went out and with Walter in a GT2 RS. With me as ballast, which probably didn't help. I was a bit heavier at the time. And he, in traffic, and he's just sitting beside somebody like that. And you'll have heard other people describe it. It's like time slows down. It's phenomenal. The capacity these people have, and Walter in particular, I've sat alongside a lot of other drivers, but Walter has this almost sort of unhuman skill of making everything look so unbelievably slow and easy and natural. Yeah. And he's just driving along, he's overtaking cars every which way but loose. Just a little wave, just a little acknowledgement every time he went past something. And you can see him, he's checking his clock. He's every time he was checking his time. And as soon as he went over, I just sort of nodded and said to him, what did you do that? And he'd done a 720. And that's chuffing fast. Yeah. That was in traffic, in very much less than perfect conditions. And I think on the RS, the reveal that I did up in sort of the Camp 4 thing, where we were out in the snow and ice, and it was a very unusual place to show the RS, and we were out in that. And Walter, again, he'd been doing the same track every day, and just literally sort of, journalists said, bums on seats, get Walter to thrill us. And he's having a conversation with me, and we go around and, we're sort of having a bit of a laugh about it all. And you can still see, as soon as he finishes, he checks his watch, to just check his time, see it, he's constantly measuring stuff. But the first time I sat beside him was really special. That was 997 Carrera 4 launch. That was the very first time I'd actually met him. Well, actually, sort of, he'd often been in the room, but it's the first time I'd met him. And I met him in the lift randomly. I was going down for breakfast, and he was in his cycling gear. And like an absolute plum, I sort of asked him, I said, you going for a cycle? And he was like, no, I've just come back. And I was like, okay. And this is like, this is about 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, where have you been? And, we're sort of not far from Nice, sort of Monaco way. So he'd been up all the calls on his bike, and he'd done 100 kilometers before I'd had breakfast. I was like, Jesus, the man, he's a machine, Yeah. And as nice as it is to sit beside him in a car, and on that launch in particular, it was the C4, and we went up the Col de Vence. Actually, it was called the Turini, sorry. They closed off a section of it, and we went up and down in a C4, which was just bonkers, because again, that was more rallying, because normally you're on a track with him. So he was pushing the car really hard. That was phenomenal. But yeah, he's a cool dude. But I mean, there's lots of other things. It's the times I've driven. I've been lucky at Goodwood to get in some really interesting things. It's like the guys at Porsche UK just sort of, I'm there with lots of other journalists who are probably far better qualified at driving old race cars than I am, because they actually race. I have a race license, and I have done a race, but I've never really raced with outside a bit of karting and stuff like that. But I've been, super subbed in, because I've got the license and driven 917 up the hill. I drove a Carrera GT up the hill, 961, the one of one sort of 959 race car.
Yeah, Le Mans car.
935 Baby, stuff like that. I'm literally sitting in these cars going, what the hell am I doing in this?
What did I do?
935 Baby was hilarious. I was sort of sitting in the holding paddock at the top of the hill. And, there's Jackie X walking towards the car, and it's his old race car. and I'm sat there, in my sort of ill-fitting race suit and terrible helmet, and I sort of stuck my head out the door as much as I could and sort of said, "Have you got any advice?" And he just sort of said, "It's too fast for you." And you just sort of think, and I went to Goodwood. I think I drove down from Scotland as a kid. With my then girlfriend, and we went to Goodwood. Max and my dad came with us as well, and I think it was about the second or third one, and I got Derek Bell's, I got his autograph, and to think, literally the year I drove the 917 up, which was last year, he was behind me in his 917, and at the top of the hill we were sort of just standing chatting, and it's just that for me, it's pinch yourself, schoolboy dream stuff. It's like if you're a footballer, it's probably going to get to take a penalty at Wembley or whatever football is. I have no idea about football, but that, I think it's that sort of level. It really is, and I'm very lucky to do it. It's a cool thing.
Absolutely.
Is there would you have any advice for anybody that was thinking of going into the same field? I mean, is there a template to follow?
I don't think there's any hard and fast rules on it. Apart from just work, you should got to be prepared to work your tail off. You've got to have a really good work ethic. Don't come in expecting to drive a Ferrari within your first week. One of the things I used to say to people was, and I really subscribe to this now, and Lee will testify, is the news stuff that is as important and as exciting as the drives. And if you could carve out yourself as a bit of a news hound and finding stories and doing sort of, doing stuff about engineering and things like that. I write for engineering mags, and some of those stories are really interesting and get you some cool access. I was chatting to the guys at Porsche Engineering, and about Nardo, and I spoke to the head of Nardo quite recently for an article for an engineering magazine, and that was just, hearing their side about the development of stuff is really cool. And the thing is, there are opportunities there. I mean, I remember, God, when the Veyron was new, a colleague of mine, John Challen, was working for Engine Testing International. He was one of the staff writers there. And this is the publication that does the Engine of the Year awards, and quite a prestigious awards that they have. And you'll see their little logo on the bottom of lots of adverts for cars. But he had driven a Bugatti Veyron before. 90% of the guys at places like Autocar and Top Gear, because they were happy to have a journalist come out and talk about the engineering side of things. And he'd been out on the road and driven this car, and it was him that gave me the contact details for the guy that I needed to speak to for me to arrange to do that as well. So it's not about necessarily going to work for Top Gear or Autocar and stuff like that. I mean, but don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with having that ambition. There's loads of work out there. If you're prepared to go out and find it, and just you sort of realize there's more to it than just driving cars. A lot of it's about people, and as I've done this for more and more time, I've really sort of come to realize that the people are as interesting, if not more interesting, than the cars, because it's the people that make the cars, it's the people that own the cars, it's the people that run the cars, buy the cars. I think that's quite an interesting sort of take on it. And for anybody starting afresh, I'd say to take a little bit more of a wider sweep of the industry, rather than just sort of thinking, well, I want to go and drive a Ferrari. It's not, because that comes, inevitably comes if you get lucky enough to get into it.
How do you think the industry has changed, Kyle, in the last 20 years? Then, say, because I mean, you hear elsewhere. Older journalists, if you like, talking about the good old days and stuff, So, you got a foot in both camps, haven't you?
Yeah, I sort of have. Yeah, I'm not. I sort of, like I say, I alluded to earlier on. I think I sort of caught the tail of what they might have considered the good old days, which was, getting pissed up at bars until silly o'clock, and then corporate responsibility comes in, and there was a time, and I think you've mentioned it in previous podcasts here, that there was a time where you would get gifts and all sorts, and it's like, well, surely being here in itself is privilege enough. But they would give you all sorts of things like iPods iPads and rubbish like that. Well, not rubbish. It was very gratefully received, but at the same time, I always felt a little bit uncomfortable with it because I was like, well, why do I need this? A little model of the car was more than enough to please me, or just a copy of the company magazine or something like that. I'm more than happy with, but no, it did get a bit silly. Well, where manufacturers almost sort of got to the point where they were sort of trying to outdo each other with gifts, and the more lavish budgets of some of the mainstream manufacturers would just have these ridiculous 3-4 day launches. But I think people have gotten more professional because they've had to, because there's more outlets in terms of the internet came along, and it's much more fast paced, less well paid as well. So you've got to write for more outlets. There would have been a time where I could have been a freelancer and written for 2 or 3 people, or maybe a maximum of 5, and done very well for myself. With word rates that are probably the same now than they would have been 30 years ago, and obviously inflation's come into play. And so you've got to be a little bit more professional about what you do, and that has changed the industry itself, and they can measure what you do much more readily than they used to. Car manufacturers used to have huge budgets to spend on press launches, and they still do spend a lot of money on them, but it was a situation where they just throw the money at it, and they would throw a couple of magazine covers under the nose of the sort of company directors, and they'd be happy with it. But it can all be measured now, so you've got it's a different thing. Yeah. And frankly, in all honesty, I think for the better, from their side and perhaps from ours as well. Because I'm not so sure it was quite so professional back in the day. I think it was more of a big jolly,
Yeah. Regards influencer, I mean, it's an awful word, isn't it? But have influencers muddied the water a bit from your point of view?
Do you know what? I'm very, me, Lee, I'm very much live and let live. There's a place for everybody. They are a different sort of breed of fish. It's like they are doing a different job. They're probably catering to a different audience. Their value, well, the manufacturers see value in them. Who am I to say that there isn't? You know what I mean? And like I say, they can measure these things, so it's up to them. I don't have an issue necessarily with influencers being on events and stuff like that. I think if they're taking genuine press seats, then I think that's a little bit of an issue. I think, if it's something that they really want to court, the manufacturers, then they should maybe consider having influencer waves like they have, because they have different levels of journalist waves, and so much as, they'll have the business press come on some trips, and they'll make sure that the suits are all there for those things, so that, people from the Financial Times can grill the bosses. They'll have I'm talking mainstream stuff here, and I'm not necessarily talking Porsche, but they will give that access if the magazines ask for it, or the newspapers ask for it. And then they'll have the enthusiast magazines, which is the sort of bit that I fall into. And then they'll have, the sort of more general press stroke lifestylers. And the lifestyle launch is always a 3-day launch rather than a 2-day launch. Because they'll spend more time in that fancy pants hotel and getting the spa treatments and talking about the experience of the hotel and being there, and maybe mentioning the fact that they were driven to dinner by BMW in this wonderful new car. You know what I mean?
That sounds like a bit of Joe, that, to be honest with you. So there's always been differentiation, and I think, in fact, as videos become much more prevalent, because there used to be a TV wave, now there's sort of video wave that they get an extra day, or because obviously filming takes up more time. Yeah. Although, to be honest with you, the way people can film now, and Lee does it himself, it's one man, one camera, or one man, a couple of cameras, and job's a good one.
You were talking earlier about sort of pros and cons, being a freelancer and how that makes it easier. Are there cons to it rather than being more dedicated to a particular magazine?
Cons? Yeah, I'll tell you there's no certainty. But it's you're pretty much flying by the seat of the pants all the time. The thing is, I've been doing it long enough to know that you've got to get in the mindset of being able to say no to stuff. I have, kids' birthdays and things like that, and are sacrosanct to me. You don't miss them. So, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just like, no, sorry, I'm not, I can't make it. I can try and come another day, or if you could fly me back a day earlier type thing. And most of the time they try and accommodate you if you're important enough. But it's being able to say no to stuff is important, because otherwise you just fall into this treadmill of just, trying to please everybody and trying to do everything, and you'll never do anything properly.
Yeah.
And having the sort of almost having this sort of the strength of character and the resolve to know that something else will come in, or you can make your own work. I think case in point, this COVID thing, I'd had a quiet January, Feb, as I say, it's typical. And my year would normally pick up from Geneva, because I would be meeting lots of people. I'd be having chats in the ears of certain people saying, this car's coming soon, can I have a go in the prototype, and all this sort of stuff.
Starting to line it all up.
But you line up your ducks for the year, and things like, for example, the turbo launch was supposed to be out in Laguna Seca in March as well. And that got canned, and they're very apologetic when they phone me up about it. And I'm like, you don't need to apologise. This is current life. It can't be helped. But I had lined up some other work off the back of that, because there was a spare day. Because on America trips, because of the amount of time you're away, there tends to be, just the way flights lie, there tends to be a little bit of free time somewhere. Yeah. And like I said earlier on, being a freelancer, you go, well, if that's a half day or a day that I can do something else. And it would typically, it was going to be Porsche related. I was going to go and drive another Porsche over there. But that would have been quite a good story. That that would have been one that Lee would have had, and various other of my clients would have taken off me, and that would have paid me for a good few months, put it that way. Yeah. But then the whole thing shut down, and it's like, oh, damn. All of a sudden my diary is just, everything that was in my diary that I had planned, and all my potential earnings just went straight out the window.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It's just terrible, really.
Yeah, and you're a small business. I run as a limited company, so furloughing myself was a non-option, really. Yeah. Or I did for a couple of months, but then I got a job come in that was just a website fill-in number, which is the one I mentioned earlier. That I've just been churning out copy, which I've done for countless different publications over the years, and I actually quite enjoy it. There's something quite nice sitting down about and having the discipline to sit down and write 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 words in a day if you have to. Quite like that. So I've had that to tide me over, but I'm sort of, like I say, we're in the middle of a massive house renovation. So we're thinking
probably
about
good
moving out
timing
soon.
if there was good
So
timing.
it's kind of good timing. I'll be looking after the kids, and I'm very lucky. My wife's got a proper job rather than a hobby. I'm very in a very lucky position that I can just maybe pick her up the slack with the childcare, and she can pay the bills for a few months. So.
What changes do you think are going to be? What's going to be your new normal after? Whatever's going on at the moment. Yeah, it's difficult to know, isn't it?
Homeschool geography teacher.
Could well be.
Well, God, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. I absolutely adore my children, but teaching your own children is a nightmare, as I'm sure many people can testify. I don't know. I think I'll diversify if I have to. I'll still concentrate on doing what I do, because I think I do it quite well, and I think there's still obviously a market there for it. My biggest concern is that publishers will take the very short-sighted view of just puckering up, not spending any money. Yeah. And I'm sure you guys as consumers, and Lee certainly as a producer, will understand that you do that, you lose an audience. It becomes very apparent when people aren't spending money on publications.
You finding that with, obviously not Total 11 specific, you find that across the board with all publications post-COVID?
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. So I had about 3 or 4 jobs that would have, like say in March, that were my kickstart to the year. And I've been offered, actually I drove 911 Turbo recently in the UK. I've got invites to drive some other things, not Porsches as it happens, but significant cars that they can only do in the UK, for the reason that they are UK manufacturers, and they're not flying in foreign journalists. So there's an opportunity for a freelancer to go with their global contacts and say, do you want words on this car? And the resounding answer from everybody is no. And it's not because they don't want words in the car, they do, but they have literally been told from on high that they have got no money to spend, or they are not to spend what money they have on anything.
You have to speculate to accumulate, didn't you? Like particularly in this scenario.
So it's a bit of a scary moment at the minute, and I don't doubt that things will pick up. It will be a slightly different environment for a while, and I think that my long-term concern is that it'll damage some publications irreparably, and it'll set a precedent for them not to use freelancers, and to sort of rely purely on staff. But likewise, it could go the other way. It could be that they go, well, actually, we've all we can work from home. Why have we got all these staff costs? Let's sort of,
Sub it out.
Who knows? Who knows? And however it lies, I'll find a way that I'm comfortable with working in it.
You sound like you're pretty adaptable.
Yeah, and then worst case, Tesco can always use drivers, can't they?
Absolutely.
As long as I'm driving something.
Assuming the world does go back to some sort of normality at some point in the near future, maybe even take it the other way. If you took the question as pre-COVID, what's the 5-year plan? If you've had a 20-year run of phenomenal success and hit all these targets you never thought you'd hit, what's the goal?
I don't really know. I think. I'm a fairly simple guy. I just to keep enjoying it. If I don't like what I'm doing, then I won't do it. So it's like, and I still love this. And like, even in the current situation where I'm, getting up at stupid o'clock and working and then looking after the family during the day because of the homeschooling and all this nonsense. Yeah, I can do that, and I'm happy to do it because I'm very lucky to do something I enjoy. I've always sort of said, and I think I sort of mentioned it a little bit earlier, I've always owned my own cars, and I find it interesting that lots of guys and girls in this business don't own cars, and it's like, well, how can you be enthusiastic about cars and not own your own? Even if it's some old snotter that's rusting away in your parents' garage at home, your name should be on the V5, of something. It can be anything, literally anything. So yeah,
authentic, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it is, and it's like how can you write about owning a car if you've never actually had to take it for an MOT and stuff like that? But yeah, I think a long-term plan. God, yeah, just to sort of be around, still relevant enough that when the 911 is an all-electric car or it's in its 12th or 13th generation, that I'm still respected enough and not thought of the doddering in the corner that they're inviting out with courtesy rather than a valid set of outlets. So yeah, we'll see. We'll just see where it takes me. I've been very fortunate to do what I do and get to where I am. A lot of it's luck, but a lot of it's
sounds like you made a lot of your own luck there, I think.
Yeah, no, I won't deny it. That I've worked hard to get to where I am, and there is a degree of luck there. I don't think anybody's going to deny that getting into this business isn't a bit lucky. I think we've all got different paths to it. There's not a particularly prescribed path that you take, although there are some courses where you can go and do motoring journalism and stuff like that now, but I'm not sure that's necessarily the right route to take. It seems a bit prescribed, and I think coming at it with a slightly different, life perspective and starting point makes it a little bit more interesting,
Yeah, definitely.
Kyle, that is a fantastic insight into your life at the very top and the very forefront of our automotive industry. So we really, really appreciate your time on Road to Redline today. Before we sign off, we've got our usual 10 podcast questions to run by you.
Okay.
They're quick fire questions, so there's no wrong answers, but if you have to think about your answer, then it's not right. Okay. So we'll jump straight in with these quick fire 10, and it might just paint a bit more of a picture from your point of view, Porsche wise. So we'll go straight in at number 1 with air or water.
Water.
Your favourite Porsche model?
997 Gen 2 GTD RS.
Favourite Porsche colour?
It's one of the greens, either malachite or Aventurine, maybe Brewster.
Okay. Ultimate Porsche icon?
959 or Carrera GT. Probably 959 because it's more 911 related.
Okay. Favourite track?
Seca.
Tafouche or not Tafouche?
Not.
Stock or hot rod?
On water. Hot rod.
Narrow body or wide body?
Narrow.
Cars and coffee or track day?
Cars and coffee in my own car, track day in somebody else's.
Very, very good. Excellent.
Love that.
Final question. You're speccing a new 911, seats in the back or not?
Well, you've heard I'm a family man, so as much as I'd like to take them out, it's always going to be seats in the back.
Yeah, you do get good use out of those rear seats, to be fair, with your children, especially in the 993 back in the day. So spot on. Yeah, I do.
I mean, they're usable cars. That's why, funnily enough, I've just had a Carrera 2. I just a Bogo 992 Carrera go back, and it had the kids' seats in the back of it. Just took them to school, the whole lot, did the shopping. So that's what, there's no point in having. It's very selfish to have a car in the garage that's for fun, and if you can put the kids in it, then it's all the better, isn't it?
Absolutely.
As much as I'd like an RS, but I'm going to be honest with myself. It ain't going to happen. So it's, I think I could aspire to a 997 GTS with rear seats, and I'd be quite a happy man.
We'll sign off with that then, Carl. That's honestly, it's a cracking interview, mate. So again, thank you very much for spending the evening with us here on Road to Redline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Good to speak to you guys. Thanks for the time. Cheers.
What do you make of that then?
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, good insight into the world of a pretty good journalist. I think.
Yeah.
He's all right.
Anyone else jealous of what Carl does?
Honestly, massively. Like, it's just ridiculous. We have a chat on the phone or on emails, and he'll just say what he's up to. Mixing around with Preuninger, or driving. I'm over in San Fran at the moment, driving the 992 prototype. He's one of the only people, certainly in this country today, who's driven a 992 generation 911 with manual gearbox.
Interesting.
Probably should have asked him about that, really, shouldn't we? But but he tested that in the 992 prototype, where there was like 4 journalists in the world got that seat.
Yeah.
I mean, he's properly, that's an amazing job. But it's hard work and graft, and actually, I think after our interviews, we've realised a bit of humility that's got him there as well.
To get on that short list, I mean, God knows where you even begin. Obviously, he gives he sort of gives a little bit of insight into where someone could go into that world, but I think there's a long way to go to fill his shoes, isn't there?
Yeah, massively.
It's so much luck. I think you hear so many of those stories. It's not luck. It's hard work.
Yeah,
but they get the right little contact.
You got to do the work to be in the right time at the right place to be able to get the drive on.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle touched on it in the interview, didn't he? There's no kind of surefire way of getting into the industry. I think the industry at times could be a little bit guilty of being a little bit secluded. It's a story for another day. But like, say, if you want to be a footballer, well, as a child, you join a football academy, don't you, with a club, and then you work your way up, and then you get a pro contract. That is the kind of accepted way to get into that industry. With car journalism, there isn't a set way.
Official route.
Yeah, everybody's path is different.
It's amazing how many people have completely different starts in life that seem to end up in the automotive world. I mean, just from people we've spoke to over the last how many weeks, we've had, today, a geography degree, we've had lawyers, we've had, all sorts of weird and wonderful.
Weird routes into it.
Yeah, definitely. And people end up, in some really, really cool jobs that, I don't know whether they necessarily wanted, also, didn't go out to get there, but ended up there. And, it's quite nice.
It's probably what makes the industry and our hobby so bloody interesting, to be honest, because, as you say,
it's a melting pot of people.
No two stories are the same. The only thing that kind of binds us all together is a love for cars. I mean, how awesome is that, That
was quite interesting what Carl was saying about the people, isn't he? You go in for the cars, but it's more about the people in the end. Yeah.
And actually, Ali from a couple of episodes ago, he said the same thing, wasn't it? It's not about shooting the car. It's the stories and memories you make working with other people. Yeah. It's the whole point, Well,
I mean, again, similar with sort of, obviously he wanted to take pictures, but started off, I can't remember, it was product pictures of some sort, and, decided actually that was really boring. So he'd go and find something more interesting to shoot. And, next thing he's sort of, knee deep in car pictures. So,
Yeah. As we've discovered, no two stories are the same, which is exactly the reason why we do this podcast, isn't it? So, long may that continue. I think next week, are we doing panelist or are we doing interview again?
Have to wait and see.
Yeah. It's because we haven't got a clue, isn't it? Yeah.
We'll let you know when we do.
Yeah. We've also, I think we should share with you at home that we've also concocted what we think is a pretty cool idea for a little video coming up. And the reason I'm saying that now is because it has to happen.
That's true. It's going to make us do it.
It's a bit of accountability here.
Yeah.
You've got to do it.
Well, we were all drinking tea at the time. There were no beers or anything, so it's not just kind of pub chat where you wake up the next day. Okay, that was a mental idea.
Okay,
you know, but which is not a mental idea, is it? But it's a cool thing. So hopefully, we'll do a cool video for people to perhaps enjoy this via a different medium.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, in fact, talking of video, we've set up the podcast on YouTube as well now. So all of the episodes are on there. They're only audio at the moment. We may do some video. Well, we will do this video that we're talking about, but maybe we might actually video the podcast sometimes.
It's an easy way for people to dip into the pod without necessarily having to download or get involved with a podcast listening app or whatever, isn't it?
That's how I got into podcasts, was first off going on YouTube and listening to a couple of podcasts that then, they're quite good actually. Didn't realise podcasts were so good. So,
yeah. We're 20 episodes in now.
Yeah, this will be the 20th, yeah.
What's been your favourite one so far then, boys? Stick your neck out.
Getting put on the spot there.
I know mine.
Go on.
Bromance, I had really, didn't I, with old Damon.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed talking to Damon.
Was good.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Is it Canapa now, isn't he?
Yes, he's moved. Yeah. Good on him.
We should probably get the lowdown on that, really. Shouldn't we?
Yeah, I think they said he might like to come back on and give us the lowdown. So.
Awesome, yeah.
I quite enjoyed Sharkworks. I know they're both sort of overseas, but I thought that was quite interesting.
Englishmen abroad.
Yeah, no, exactly that. Yeah,
again,
just playing with. I think anyone who's sort of fettling with the top end cars, I think is quite brave, and I thought that was quite cool.
What's yours then, Lee?
Do you know, I really enjoyed last week's panelist episode with Phil. And I think it was, first time we kind of all got together in person again to do the pod. Phil, who obviously is a mate of ours down here, and his story is like genuinely interesting, isn't it? How many people go from a 991 GT3 to a 996, admittedly to get a house extension, but, and then
it's always the house extension.
Isn't it? Yeah. It really is, but I really enjoyed that. But genuinely, I don't.
It's interesting how we get feedback from like what you think might not be the most interesting subject, and there's always one or two people that really say, "No, that's the one I really enjoyed."
Yeah.
When personally, I think, "Oh, I'm not sure that's going to appeal."
Because I think some of the headline subjects, potentially could be argued to, they certainly could sound a bit dry or a bit uninteresting on
but we've had good feedback about every single one that we've done,
and I think actually it's amazing what comes out, isn't it? I mean, you don't want to hang anyone out to dry, do you? Lockton's insurance has got to be an easy one to poke fun at, because someone said, "Well, you do a podcast about insurance." And like, really, car insurance? But actually, we all came away from that saying,
that's really interesting.
Interesting and useful, and actually, quite a lot came out of that we were quite surprised about. So, there is some value in there somewhere.
Yeah. I think while we're backslapping, it'd be nice if people listening at home, if you wouldn't mind bringing us back down to earth a bit, we'd love to hear your feedback, wouldn't we? Constructive,
and your 5-star reviews, of course.
Yes, we'd be particularly welcome of some 5-star reviews.
Anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah.
Make sure you do it on YouTube, the new channel, on Apple Podcasts and any of the other podcast directories that you use.
Excellent. Yeah, job done.
I suppose the other one is, it'd be great just to pass around a bit more knowledge that the podcast exists.
Word of mouth is good.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Everyone's sort of got
Tell your mates.
friends, haven't they? So kind of, let's share the love a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great stuff. Nice one, fellas. Until next time, hey?
Indeed. Good to see you all. Latest.